Hi folks, I'm Spence, and on today's episode of Cult Mania, we're taking a look at Nic Refn's latest TV offering, Copenhagen Cowboy. Co-created by Refn and Sarah Isabella Jensen-Vetti, this is, like I said, Refn's second stab at a TV series. Notably, the last one was on Prime, this one's on Netflix. That probably tells you something. And I'll be honest, I was not sure. At one point, to me, Nic Refn was one of the greatest living director ever when I was a teenager. Drive is still one of the best films of the last however many years. I adore Only God Forgives. To be honest, everything from Bronson onwards, I just adored. It was everything that I wanted in media. And then Too Old to Die Young came out, and I was so excited. And I didn't finish it because it was so long and filled with characters that I just hated. And then I tried to watch it again, and I made it even less of the way through. But Copenhagen Cowboy, a shorter series, maybe you'd learnt some stuff from working on that last project. Now, attempting to tell you what the plot of Copenhagen Cowboy is not easy. It follows Mew, a woman who is brought into Denmark through illegal means, and she's basically been brought in because she's like a human Lucky Charm. She's supposed to bring luck wherever she goes, and there is a sort of mobster sister who wants to get pregnant, so that's basically why she's around. And when they get to the house of the sister, it becomes clear that she's not the first person that's been trafficked into the country. The mobster brother runs like a modelling agency, which is a front for a brothel, and you can guess where everything's going. Apart from you can't guess where everything's going, because this series picks up and drops plot lines like it's no one's business. This is writing that would make any single literature, film studies professor weep into their cereal every morning, because Jesus Christ, does this series flit between plot lines, just leave things that feel like they were completely unresolved, completely, or had nothing really to do with the entire plot whatsoever. It will introduce characters that feel like they're about to be really important, and then you'll never see them again, or they'll just die, but unceremoniously. It's really quite strange. And that feels like a massive problem, but it kind of isn't. Especially because I didn't connect with the opening, what the plot felt like it was going to be in the first episode and a half. Didn't click with me. I was like, why am I watching this? This is really boring. What is this? And then it sort of works its way out, and suddenly I was like, oh, we're onto a new plot line that is way more interesting. Why couldn't we have just started with this one? And if you can get on with the fact that none of this makes any sense, none of this, you could, as long as you are ready for stuff to just not be resolved at all, or to just happen and just go with it. There's actually, I found the plot quite intriguing because I genuinely didn't know what was going to happen next.
Men mennesker døde i dit nærvær. Og mennesker har fået et nyt liv i dit nærvær.
Now, it's very, 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 very difficult to also talk about acting in any Refn project of late, Copenhagen Cowboy especially, partly because I watched it in Danish, which he's always going to throw up the issue of, I don't know accents, blah, 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 blah. There's also lots of stuff in different languages as well. But also because it's so overly stylised. It is a lot of people standing in a room, staring while some synth plays, or it's just silence. And then there will be a sentence and a pause. And it doesn't feel like conventional acting at all. And I think I was sort of focused on that for quite a while, thinking, how easy is this? Because to an audience, it looks like you stand in a room, give a sort of vague expression, and remember 2 lines of dialogue. But actually, this entire series hinges on mood and tone and just being like enveloped in this sort of strangeness. That it must actually be really difficult and quite a lot of pressure. Angela Bundelovic, who plays Mew, is on screen a lot, and thankfully he's much more of like a obvious hero, anti-hero character than anyone in Too Old to Die Young, which actually really helped me engage. And that's the thing, she sort of has to make you engage with the character and a load of disparate plot lines that don't make a lot of sense, whilst not saying a fat lot, looking strange, occasionally doing kung fu, and yet she does it. I was fully invested and wanted to know where she was going to go next. I actually cared about Mew as a character, which I didn't think I was going to after like the first sort of hour or so, because she just sits around looking at things. And I think you start to notice nuances. And there is so much of this cast have not acted in any film project, TV project. Their IMDb's contain Copenhagen Cowboy. And I'm talking like central characters. Like the people who were in the most episodes have been in the least stuff, apart from Mew. But it is impressive, because it must be so hard to have that pressure of a very long take and just thinking, if I fuck up this next line of dialogue that we've waited 2 minutes for, this whole shot goes out the window. So actually, it's not good acting in the sense of a thespian great line delivery, but actually holding the tone of the series together. Everyone does a bang up job. Now, as I said, the takes in this are quite long, and the whole cinematography is oh so slow. It's obviously drenched in neon, as all modern day Refn projects are, despite the fact that I believe he's colourblind, which is quite strange. You know, so much of this is like neon pinks and blues with this sort of very foggy, sort of misty atmosphere, and the camera will slowly drift. Often it will spin around the centre of a room. Honestly, the pacing of this series makes like Twin Peaks The Return look like a thriller-minute, action-packed, you know, white knuckle ride. There are so many scenes in this that are... But actually, it didn't bother me nearly as much as it did in something like Too Old to Die Young, which definitely looks better. I get the sense that Netflix didn't give Refn nearly as much money. Some of the sets are really quite sparse. Some look amazing, and then others are really, really empty. And there's a few more sort of handheld shots in this, and the level of intricacy in some of those long takes is nowhere near as high as it was in something like Too Old to Die Young. Like there's a shot in episode 2 of Too Old to Die Young in which like a character walks backwards and forwards and other people do things, and the timing of it is it works in scenes like that. That's something that I thought was really impressive. But also you go, Jesus Christ, how many takes did you have to do because that person wasn't quite in the right place? You don't get that quite as much here. And I do think overall this looks cheaper. It still looks great, and it still looks better than 90% of stuff on Netflix, but it doesn't perhaps have quite the impactful look that the last couple of projects did. But we do get a lot of slow zooms, and you know I love a zoom.
Jeg har bare et spørgsmål. Det var ikke så et spøgelse.
Special shout out to the costumes in this. There are some absolutely horrific tracksuits going on, and Mew gets a horrific tracksuit that appears by the end to have some sort of weird spiritual significance, and just gets more horrific things to put on top of it. It's really, really weird. Speaking of really weird, I didn't really talk about this in the plot because it sort of impacts the plot, sort of doesn't. It's a very tonally, very, 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 very strange show. Because, like I said, Mew is this sort of good luck charm. There is very clearly a supernatural element going on within the series that very early on feels like it's a sort of fairy tale vibe. You have human characters that make animal noises, and I mean there's a lot of pigs. Pigs turn up in this a lot. There's a bit that I don't know if is a reference to the film Pigs, because some pigs eat some evidence, and as the tagline for Pigs told us, pigs will eat anything, even evidence. Anyway, random side note. Yeah, and you get these moments in which supernatural stuff seems to be happening that's never explained, which I really liked. And then sometimes it disappears for like an entire, what feels like an episode, and then we'll come back. And it just continues this really weird tonal shifting where plot lines just sort of phase in and then go again. Oh, there's some supernatural stuff, and then it's gone again. And that is going to piss off so many people. But actually, I really, really liked it. It was something, again, because you just didn't know what was going to happen next. And by the end, I'm not going to spoil the ending at all, but I was literally just like, what the fuck is going on? It has the sort of thing that I think Refn is doing what he thinks doing a Lynch would be like. It has that very much that vibe, including a very stroby sequence towards the end. Be careful. But yeah, like I was just like, what? Huh? What is going on? Who are you? What is this? That is possibly set up for a second series that is definitely never going to happen. There is just so much that is just bizarre. It really is strange, and I had like people walk in while I was watching stuff and trying to explain what was happening. It was just impossible.
Ona nije ta devojka koja se predstavlja. Ona ne donesi sreću.
The soundtrack is, to be perfectly honest, as you would expect, really, really good. It is a sort of hit parade of all the people that have worked with Refn since Valhalla Rising onwards. You've got some Cliff Martinez stuff, some Julian Winding stuff, some Peter stuff, and some Peter Keith stuff. And I don't actually know who the main composer was, because it seems to change everywhere I look. But there is it's synth. It's that very ethereal, sort of like the stuff. It reminds me perhaps the most of Drive, in that it is often very floaty, and again gives this sort of very dreamlike fairy tale logic that will then every now and again you'll get like a little bit of a beat or some guitar. There's like one track that if you played it on like an 80s night towards the end of the night, people would have like a bit of a nice slow dance to, and actually would work in a club setting. It would be really nice. And then there's like one track that suddenly gets this sort of very almost Rammstein-y chuggy guitar going on. It's a nicely varied score. I sat and listened to the entire score yesterday and really, really, really liked it. It suits the series down to a T. If you've seen anything that Refn has made, it sounds like that very much. But just to the right degree. It doesn't feel like a sort of pastiche of his stuff. It still makes it sound... It sounds honest, if that makes sense.
No, ty czysty dziawo.
You're here for the hell no, man.
As you can tell, I actually really quite liked Copenhagen Cowboy. I did not think I was going to. The first episode is easily the worst episode of the series because it just is so chaotic with so many elements that it brings in. Brings up some issues. Refn's projects do not treat female characters particularly great, and not in a way that makes you think he's trying to say so. He probably is trying to say something, but the whole sort of human trafficking thing, especially with like all the stuff in the news at the moment with like Andrew Tate and how sort of really horrible it is, to sort of see it handled quite clumsily is quite off-putting. But as I said, like there's like so many plot lines going on that you'll find something to latch onto, possibly. I would really struggle to recommend this to anyone that's not seen other Refn stuff, because it will piss so many people off in just the amount of silence, just the amount of what is happening, why am I watching this, why do I care? But it has something. I think having a hero really helps, because I couldn't get on with Too Old to Die Young, although liking this as much as I have is making me think maybe third time I'll get it. But the fact that I hated every single character in that for the first couple of episodes just put me off, because it was like I'm spending those episodes as well being 90 minutes, this being hour-long episodes and there being 6 of them really helps. But yeah, I actually felt invested, and I wanted to see what was going to happen next because I genuinely didn't know. And it does feel like it's supposed to set up a second series. We will not get it, I will tell you that. I will eat a hat, Werner Herzog. Oh, it's his shoe, isn't it? Werner Herzog style. If we get a second series of this, I do think Refn needs to make a film next. He needs to be reminded how to tell a story in 2 hours. Because the first 2 episodes could have been 1 episode and it would have made the series entirely better. So I really hope he makes a film next rather than another series. But this was a really pleasant surprise and a very nice way to start out the year with some really good telly. So, if you like Refn and weird, slow cinema TV series and have 6 hours to kill, I would recommend Copenhagen Cowboy. It is also not for everyone. So, with not for everyone in mind, let me know what you've thought of Copenhagen Cowboy if you've watched it down in the comments. Like and subscribe so you don't miss any more videos, and I shall see you next time.